Hey guys, remember you can get your solves critiqued by going to patreon.com/jperm. And besides written critiques, every month you have a chance to be featured in a video. So let's get started. So in the first scramble, we have the white cross. The green piece is already done. Red can go easily relative here to green, and blue can also go here easily. So that makes 3 pieces of the cross, and we have orange over here. Now, especially when you have an easy cross like this, you should try to find the best way to do finger tricks so that you're not facing the bottom or the top. Make sure you're facing one of the sides ready to do F12 afterwards. What you did for this cross solution was insert blue, insert red, and then you were facing white, did F prime, insert orange, and then F2, and that's the cross. Instead, when you have a piece like this, you don't want to leave it in the back such that you have to do a B move. Instead, you can just rotate so that you're facing the green side or facing the blue side, and the finger tricks would be great. For example, if you face this side, you can do blue, red, and then D prime, orange, and D2. So taking a look here, your cross took 3.3 seconds, and usually you want your cross to take about 10% of your time. So if you average 18, you should have your cross take about 2 seconds, hopefully less. And that can be achieved with better finger tricks like this. All right, then for first pair, the most obvious options were this one and this one. You went with these two, but you did a double rotation. It looks like the first rotation you did was to just face the pair out of habit, and the second rotation you did was because, okay, now that you're here, you could rotate either way, and you just went this way. So this is a habit you were doing a lot, and I recommend working on not rotating until you know what the case is. So you double rotated and did this case like this. All right, next you had these two, and this is something I'm going to mention a lot for finger tricks. Often when starting with R prime or L, it's a bad habit to just regrip to the top, even when it's unnecessary in a case like this. As you can see, your left hand is set up for U prime, but there is no U prime here. So make sure at times like this, you don't regrip and just do it like that. All right, then you inserted, and then you have this one and this one. Again, for recognition, you didn't see this right away, which is sort of fair. And then once you found this, you can do this from here by pairing them up like this, but then you rotated again and did this case. All right, and then we have this one. And then for OLL, for soon here, anytime you have stuff that starts with R, don't regrip like this. And instead, you should start with your thumb on top and do this or this to start. So then the whole algorithm can be regripless like that. All right, and then PLL. Now for the second solve, we have orange here and green, blue, and red. So the first one you did was red. I personally recommend doing something about blue sooner rather than later because this is not very good. So what you did was insert red like this, and then you moved green to the back, and then you did B2. Afterwards, you moved blue over, inserted blue here, and then aligned the cross. I'd say in a way this is better than the last cross solution because there are no cube rotations, but there is that regrip to B2 and unregrip afterwards. Now going off your cross solution, one improvement you can immediately make is after inserting red, instead of moving green all the way to the back, you can just align the cross like that. So align the bottom and align this so that it's not B, instead it's just L or R. And then after you insert green, you can then insert blue. And yeah, this is a lot more moves, but it's actually going to be way faster. But a better way to do the cross solution is to actually do green and red together later, because as you notice, if you just put them in, they are correct relative to each other based on the centers. So generally a bad piece like blue here, I would try to do first, but in this case, it actually sets up nicely if I do it last. So I could align orange so that these two go in correct relative to orange, and then blue is actually aligned to its center. So then with my hand already in this position, this is when it's okay to do B. So I would do D prime like this and then B prime. So this cross solution faster would look like this. All right, after the cross solution, we're going to continue on this theme of finger tricks. For this pair, what you did was R prime U2 R like this, but anytime you have to do U2, if you regripped just for the U2, that means it was probably unnecessary because you can just do U2 with your other hand. So for here, this would be better. And then insert it into the back, and then you had these two. And here, this is a very, very common bad habit, and that is to regrip down to do our U2 R prime for this, because it flows so well. If you regrip first, it's so fast to insert this pair. But if you factor in the time for the regrip, it's much faster to do U2 with your other hand, and then here just do a special U finger trick to insert it. And here there's these two, and there's also these two. And I think you knew what this pair was going to be, but then you did it with a rotation. This pair can be done from the back using reverse sexy move mirrored to the back like this. But what you did was rotate and then do it from here, which again is kind of like a comfort thing, and it also has the regrip in it, which you don't want to do. All right, then you had this pair, and I don't know if you instinctively rotated or you usually solve it with a rotation. So what you did was rotate, sledgehammer, and then insert. But instead from here, if you do two sexy moves, then that inserts it as well. All right, then OLL and PLL. And I did notice two things about your PLL that could be improved. So you started with this F perm, which is totally fine. And then here, what you did here was, I think you don't actually ever use this special U finger trick or this one. So what you're doing for U is you're always having your right thumb on the front. And so here what you did was you regripped so that you can get your right thumb on the front for U here, but then you don't have any finger trick available for this next U, so then you regripped. So from here, the two best things to do are either go like that and then end it like this, or do what I do, which is index to middle finger like that. And then the next thing I want to point out about this is I also noticed it in your last algorithm, but you didn't have a U-turn at the end. Here you did, and you paused to recognize right here. And then you did the U prime, and then you stopped the timer. And so that pause should be completely eliminated by knowing where blocks go after a PLL. So for F perm, it should be very obvious. This block here will stay here at the end. So you know that after you finish the algorithm, you have to do U prime. So in this solve, again, for the cross, you started with white on front. Again, as much as possible, try to start with white on the bottom. What you did here was you inserted orange across from red like this, and then you fixed it and did this. So afterwards, you had green here, and what you did was rotate, 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 and then come in here. If you're facing white bottom, you can do the same thing as long as you have some better finger tricks. So make sure that you have reverse D pushes with both of your hands, as they're super important for the cross, and they open up so many more options for your cross. So here what you could just do is insert orange here, do the reverse D push, and then F prime like that. But regardless, having green here in the end is not very good because that will require B moves anyway as it goes into the back. So what I recommend for this one is do orange the same way you did here, but set up green as your first move. And then do this from the back angle like this, because it works out well from here. Or since we're doing F and B moves, you could actually do the same thing facing red. So that would be like this, set up green and set up orange here, insert this like that, and then insert green. So you're at the level where you should always be planning the entire cross, and it did look like in this solve, everything except for the green piece, which ended up here, was planned. You did plan these pieces, although you did have to face white and then do a lot of rotations. So that is definitely not something you should be doing anymore. And I think if you get a lot better at planning your cross and the finger tricks, making sure that there are no rotations and stuff like that, then you can definitely save at least 2 seconds on your times. All right, so after your cross solution, you had this one, and how I recommend doing this is either with a sledgehammer on this side, that pairs it up. But if you had it in this case and you don't want to do lefty thumb moves, you can do righty thumb moves and do it like this instead, and that pairs it up. And that is essentially what you did, but then you Q rotated first in order to get that to happen, and then you rotated again. All right, then this one, and again, you did pair it up the good way, but you are doing the regrip here to start, which is not good. So check out the finger tricks tutorial video for any of you guys wondering what finger tricks I'm talking about. Okay, and then insert this, and then insert this into the back. And we had these two. And again, I think you did a preemptive rotation because just from looking at it, maybe you don't have enough experience to be able to immediately tell whether or not you have to rotate for some cases, especially under pressure. Because like for everyone watching, what you have to realize is that when you record yourself, even for a critique, and you can do it as many times as you want, there still is pressure. But it is where bad habits start to show. And you did do a preemptive cube rotation to face this and have the edge like this. In fact, in general, having the edge attached to the front center means it's not going to be a good case because you'll have to rotate. You generally want edges attached to their side center. So if that helps at all, then take that with you. So what you did was after facing green, okay, I'll have to rotate. I'll just rotate this way, which ended up being a Y2 rotation. All right, and then here for OLL, I did notice you have this bad habit of looking around the cube, which is also true for PLL, and you shouldn't do that. Especially for OLL, you can always tell what it is just by looking at the top and two sides. And it may not always immediately hit you what it is. For example, from this side, I don't see any yellow on these, so I want to see some yellow, so I might look here. But of course, with some practice, you can just deduce that the yellows must be here. And this is true for every OLL, just the top and whatever two sides you happen to be looking at. All right, and then this OLL case. And then PLL, this G perm made me very happy because it looks like you're using very similar finger tricks to what I've shown before, which is like this. Thumb, reverse index. And so it appears you can do that reverse index turn, so hopefully you can use that more in F2L now for stuff like this. All right, here the red cross piece is already done and we have the rest over here. So what you did first was insert blue, well, not really insert blue, but set up green basically, but move orange out of the way, put in orange and put in blue. This cross solution was a bit better than the other ones, but I saw some hesitations midway through, so I'm wondering if you actually didn't plan the whole thing or you just didn't have all the moves ready to go. You probably did plan the whole thing, but make sure you can do these moves very quickly, because this cross solution was still about 2.5 seconds, which definitely could be faster for the number of moves you did. Now we have this one, and again you can pair them up like this, but then instead you did a cube rotation like that. And then here, this reminds me of a tip that I showed in this video that I think you may find useful. So remember what I said about wanting to line up these pieces to the side and not to the front. So front and back and side is the same thing. So side is like one thing and front back is another thing. So you don't want it to be able to line up with front or back because that means you'll have to rotate. So something that could help is anytime you see something like this, it's not lining up here, it's not opposite either, which means it couldn't line up on the other side, then just immediately rotate. And it doesn't even matter which way you rotate because that will solve the edge orientation. It will be able to line up on the side and then you can always insert it without a rotation. And I'm about to talk about it again here. So after we insert this one, then we have this, this, and this. So one thing that I find that especially intermediate level cubers have a lot of trouble with is when there is an edge and a corner and there's no quick way to compare them, then it's hard to see how exactly these should get paired up. And it's really easy to hesitate and want to do something else instead. So in this case, this is the superior option compared to what you did for this case. And so what you did instead was, I don't know if you saw these two, but you went for these two right away. And this is actually a very bad case. So what's good is you didn't actually rotate to look here. Instead, you just saw this. And then what you did was go like that to pair them up and then insert into here. So still what you did though was you did move it here to compare the sticker colors, and that is something that you want to avoid as much as possible and instead find a better way to figure out what case it is. And in this case, it's the fact that this edge is oriented because the side color touches the correct side center. And by correct, I mean the green or blue, because like opposite is also okay. So just by using that edge orientation trick, you can deduce this exact case without moving the corner on top of the edge. And the same is true for this one. This one can line up with the side here, which means that you will not have to rotate to pair these up. And that's a really useful trick to help me remember if they're supposed to pair up like this, which is not the case here, or if I'm not supposed to rotate and just pair them up like this, which is the case here because this lines up on the side. So in fact, this case would be a much better case to do right now because it's just like that and then insert. And also, I know people in the comments are going to point this out. I personally rarely ever use this, but for these two, you can do R2 wide U, R2 wide U prime R2. But it makes look ahead really hard, and I sometimes do it for back slots, but I will not do it in this case. So what I would do in this case is similar to how you did it, which is to reverse sexy moves like that to pair them up. It's a slight optimization to instead do two sexy moves at the back slot because it still pairs them up, but it doesn't require a regrip with your thumb to the top to start. Okay, that's a lot of talk for that actual case. So you inserted it, then you got this, and again, you did a Y2 rotation, which I already talked a lot about before, so I'm not gonna keep talking about that here. But then this happened. Really, I've been talking this whole video about using that finger trick, and turns out you already know how to do it, so please just use it more often in all of your front slot F12 cases. All right, and then this OLL, I'm not even gonna try and replicate the finger tricks here. I'm not sure exactly what you did, but you should just do it like this. And that works better because instead of regripping to start, you just do U2 with your left hand. All right, and then PLL, and that's it. So 3 key things that I mentioned throughout this video were to make better cross solutions that have better finger tricks so that you can save up to 2 seconds on your solves. And I also mentioned this earlier, but just a reminder for any of you guys out there who are wondering if your cross solutions are good or not, you can time them and make sure they're about 10% of your solves. Next, which you apparently know how to do already but don't do, is this sort of stuff for F12 cases. I haven't seen you do that sort of stuff with your left hand, but make sure that you can do this so that you avoid regripping either of the thumbs to the bottom. And lastly, the trick that I thought would be especially helpful to you is knowing when to cube rotate. So if you see something like this, matching the front, or opposite matching the front, then you should rotate. But if it opposite matches the side or matches the side, then you don't need to rotate. And this only applies for the edge. And that can help to more quickly ingrain confidence in you for when you should rotate and when you shouldn't rotate, because there's a really easy trick to see when you need to and when you don't. All right, thanks for watching. Remember, you can get your solves critiqued if you donate on Patreon, and you can also get your name right here on the end screen. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you guys next time.